few months ago, I reviewed the first DC Finest Batman volume, covering all the Batman stories from 1986 to 1987. And this is the follow-up, which contains all the Batman stories published between November 1987 and August 88, including the graphic novels Son of the Demon and The Killing Joke. There's a lot of good stuff in here, so let's have a look inside. That's the table of contents. The first story is The Ghost of Masahiko Tahara by Joe Duffy, Kieran Dwyer and Mike DiCarlo. It's not a great start to the book. It's really just a standard museum heist story. You get to see Batman fighting a Japanese samurai in full armour, but it's all very predictable, and the resolution to the mystery behind it all is no surprise whatsoever. Much better is the second story, Victims, by Jim Starlin, Jim Aparo and Mike DiCarlo, which is the regular team for the Batman Monthly comic at the time. It's a dark tale of a serial killer murdering random women, which gets personal for Batman when his latest love interest becomes one of the victims. The first-person narration gives it a kind of noir feel. You really feel Batman's growing obsession with solving the case. And the ending is a real gut punch as he gets it wrong for once, which is very rare. It's a real standout story. Next is a two-part story featuring Two-Face by Mike W. Barr and Jim Bakey. There's actually two versions of Two-Face here. One of them is actually Paul Sloan from an old Batman story in the 50s. And the whole story has kind of 50s, 60s feel to it. There's lots of crimes based on the number 2. All of Two-Face's men are twins. And there's a cliffhanger ending to part 1. Robin does get to work through his anger at Two-Face killing his father, which was established in the last volume. But apart from that, there's not much to it. This is followed by the graphic novel Son of the Demon, written by Mike W. Barr, with beautiful artwork by Jerry Bingham. It's 80 pages long and feels like a movie, starting with Batman taking down a group of terrorists who've taken hostages at a chemical plant. Then Talia al Ghul pops up and convinces him to join her at Ra's al Ghul's base in order to take down the terrorist Kane. It does build on earlier stories. Talia already knows Batman's secret identity, and Ra's wants him as an heir. So it's not exactly new reader friendly, but the characters have appeared in lots of movies and TV shows, so if you're already familiar with them, then you'll probably get the gist. There's some spectacular action scenes throughout, with a rocket launch being sabotaged and an assault on Ra's base, but the emotional storyline is the real hook, as Talia gets pregnant, but Batman is so overprotective that she pretends to lose the baby. Grant Morrison would pick up the story 20 years later, when Damian Wayne becomes a regular character and the new Robin. But even without knowing what happens later, it's still a great standalone read, and it's certainly up there as one of the best all-time great Batman stories. This is followed by 2 crossovers with DC's Millennium event, which spanned all of their comics at the time, although it's not really thought of as one of the better crossovers. Luckily, part 1 is pretty self-contained. James Gordon has been replaced by an evil killer robot, and Batman and Robin have to disguise themselves in order to sneak into Arkham Asylum. So it's a perfectly decent storyline on its own. Part 2 is more of a mixed bag. Half of it has the real James Gordon searching for his old Navy unit, who've all been targeted by the Manhunters. And this part works well enough, but then it ends with a more direct crossover with the main event, which is quite hard to understand on its own, perhaps because it references the stories from 4 other books of the time. Maybe it'll all make sense next time Millennium is repeated in its entirety, but I won't be rushing to read that. White Golden Truth is a more character-driven story, telling how Jason Todd's Robin meets Dick Grayson's Nightwing for the first time. And Dick also meets Bruce for the first time since he stopped being Robin, which was told in the previous volume. It does not go well, but Jason and Dick do end up bonding, which Bruce may have planned all along. The Nightwing costume is a bit silly, but it's a strong look at the relationship between these three characters, and it makes for a nice change of pace. Fever is a two-part story from the regular team on Detective Comics at the time, which is John Wagner and Alan Grant, the writers, and Norm Breyfogle as the artist. Batman tries to stop a new drug spreading through Gotham City, taking down the Pushers, and breaking into their fortress, before finally confronting the mastermind behind it all, who's smuggling the drugs in the body of a corpse. It sounds like the grimmest story ever, but by contrast, the bad guy is actually the ventriloquist, who gives all his orders through a gangster puppet called Scarface. It's a really weird clash of styles. Somehow it works, but you can't help but wonder how the ventriloquist rose to such a position of power with such a silly gimmick. Maybe that would be explained in a later story. Next we have 10 Nights of the Beast, a 4-part storyline. This introduces KG Beast, a deadly Russian assassin who comes to Gotham to kill 10 people, all of whom were involved with Ronald Reagan's Star Wars program, which would have been very topical at the time. Despite his unfortunate costume, which looks like it's full of holes, he's a formidable opponent, highly trained, and more than a match for Batman. There are some excellent action scenes, as KG Beast and Batman fight each other to a standstill, completely silent, and another where Batman's climbing up an elevator shaft, while the Beast throws cinder blocks down on top of him. And it all ends in a final battle in the sewers. So again, it feels like a movie in comic form. There's also a whodunit going on, as one of the federal officers is leaking information to the Beast. The reveal is a bit underwhelming, as it's a character who's barely spoken, but it's a really strong story overall. Next is a 2-part story, introducing the Ratcatcher. Again, it's set in the sewers, as a madman has trained an army of rats to attack people and gnaw them to death. And he's kept the 4 people who put him in jail locked up down there for years. So it's quite horrific, really, and very satisfying when Batman finally takes him down. Next is a 2-part story that resolves the end of Victims from 7 months earlier. I had thought it would be left unresolved, so this was a pleasant surprise. Batman finally manages to track down the murderer, who turns out to be a woman-hating incel, in 1988, before Twitter even existed. But the man goes free as Batman illegally obtained the evidence. You'd think this would happen a lot more often. Justice is finally served, though. It's one of the most realistic stories in the book. There's nothing that could stop it from happening in the real world. So it's very satisfying to see him get his comeuppance. Night People is a 3-part story taking place on one long night in Gotham, with various subplots unfolding, such as a prison escapee, a homeless man is stabbed, Batman busts a drug smuggler, all of it soundtracked by a DJ playing songs, and you get snippets of real song lyrics to add to the realism. So the first part feels very down-to-earth and realistic, but then the escaped prisoner is covered in chemical waste and becomes the corrosive man, who can burn through anything he touches. He feels like he really should be a Swamp Thing villain. And the final part brings in another crazy villain called Cadaver, with a basement full of ghoulish traps. So again, it's a really weird mix of styles, but it all comes together in the end. All of the different subplots come together, and it all feels very neat. For the Love of Ivy is a short backup story with Poison Ivy, in which Batman goes after Poison Ivy, who's been up to her old tricks. It feels very dated compared to the rest of the stories in the book, with lots of thought balloons, and the lettering is printed very small, so it's not one of the best. Finally, we have another standout story, The Killing Joke. It's one of the most acclaimed Batman stories. Brian Bolland's art is highly detailed, and Alan Moore's script is as intricate as Watchmen. It's beautifully constructed, beginning and ending with the same 9-panel grids as Watchmen, and with clever transitions in and out of the flashback scenes. And it's full of iconic images that have been copied ever since. Admittedly, its treatment of women is rather disturbing. The Joker shoots Barbara Gordon, strips her naked, and takes photos to show her dad to drive him crazy. But the ramifications of the story have been explored in numerous comics since then. with Barbara Gordon becoming Oracle and then Batgirl again. So it's a vital part of the whole Batman story. And this is the back cover. Yeah, so it's a definite improvement on the last volume. Lots of really strong stories, both in Batman and in Detective Comics. And the 2 graphic novels are absolute standouts as well. So I would recommend this for any Batman fan. If you're planning to buy this through Amazon, then please consider using my affiliate link below. That will help support this channel. I will definitely be buying any future volumes that follow on from this. The next one on the schedule is going back to 1985, and the one after that goes all the way back to 1939. But I'm sure they'll get back to the late 80s sooner or later. And I look forward to when they do. So press subscribe if you enjoyed my reviews, and I'll see you next time.